Hello and welcome to my channel if this is the first video of mine that you are watching, but if it is not, welcome back. Today I am going to have hopefully a short and sweet video for you all. Last night I was watching Theo's version of this tag and it inspired me to take a look at my bookshelves and see what books I would slot into these 5 categories for books that I just haven't picked up yet. So I will leave a link to Theo's video from Rekindled Reader down below, as well as links to the original creators of this tag. But like I said, there are 5 categories. So I'm going to talk about 5 books today that have just been on my bookshelves for literal years and I haven't read them yet. I did upload a kind of similar video recently, my 24 books for 2024, which is a TBR of sorts for the remainder of the year, and it includes 24 books that I'd like to read before the end of December. So there are a few titles that I have in front of me today that also were on that list, but 3 out of the 5 books I'm going to talk about today were not on my TBR for the end of the year, and I'll get into why that might be in a moment. But before I talk about the books that I haven't read yet, today's distilled cocktail pairing is a Haskap Mojito, and this is my spin on a classic mojito, but with the mint leaves, I muddled in a small handful of Haskap berries. Haskap berries are very similar to blueberries. They're incredibly high in antioxidants. Their appearance, they're a little bit longer and squatter than blueberries. They're more oval shaped rather than circles. I went out last month and picked a whole bunch of Haskap berries, so I have tons in my freezer. So I just took out a small handful and added them to this mojito, and I'm really excited to see what it tastes like. The color variation was a little bit more prominent 5 minutes ago or so when I first made it, but yes, I muddled together a small handful of Haskap berries, handful of mint leaves, then added in a little bit of simple syrup, some white rum, and topped with club soda. Then I garnished with some more mint and a lime wheel. But I am gonna stir this up and we'll give it a taste test. Berry got stuck. This is absolutely delicious, but a straw is not a good idea because the berries keep getting stuck. This is really, really good. I feel like it's quite similar to if you ordered a blueberry mojito or made a blueberry mojito. If you like mojitos and you can get yourself some Haskaps, I would absolutely recommend trying this beverage here. But let's set this to the side and get into the books. The first category of this tag is a classic that you haven't yet read. And there are a few books that I could have chosen for this category, but I decided to go with Ulysses by James Joyce. And I don't think I even need to go much farther than that to explain why I haven't finished Ulysses, because there are very few readers who have, and there is a reason for that. I read sections of Ulysses back in university, I think maybe 2nd year or 3rd year. So there are some sticky notes in here, some tabs, but I think I only read maybe collectively 100 or so pages. And I have said for the last nearly 10 years that I am going to go back and I am going to finish Ulysses. That's one of my lifetime reading goals. I don't think it's a reading goal that I'm going to meet this year, but it is a lifetime reading goal. I would love to finish Ulysses because it is such a classic. It's such a behemoth, and it's so pivotal to not just Irish literature, but literature in general. However, the stream of consciousness in this book makes it very difficult to kind of get into, but then also put it down. It's not, from what I remember, a very easy book to read. But yes, the classic that I've had on my shelf for years and years, nearly a decade, and have not yet read is Ulysses by Joyce. If you are one of the elite, coveted few that have made your way through Ulysses and finished it, please let me know down below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if finishing this is worth the reward. I definitely would love to read this one day. I'm not sure when that day will be. I have read Dubliners by Joyce, and that's a really good way to ease yourself into Joyce's writing. It's an earlier iteration of what became kind of his trademark with Ulysses. I did really enjoy Dubliners, so I think I will find Ulysses gratifying when I get to it, but I don't know when that will be. The next category of this tag is fiction, and I have selected Lent by Jo Walton. I first heard of this book in 2019 or 2020, I believe. It was published in 2019, so I heard about it not long after its publication. It was Jean's Bookish Thoughts here on BookTube that I first heard speaking about this book, and I have previously read Jo Walton's Among Others and absolutely adored that book and the way that magical realism was woven throughout the book, the subtleties and the way that things were still left up for discussion on whether that was actually taking place in the world or whether that was just our protagonist projecting. So I think something similar is going to take place within Lent. We follow a young monk who allegedly can see demons and cast them out with the force of his will. It says here that his life is a series of miracles. And I've had this book on my radar since 2019, 2020. I think I've owned a copy since 2021 now. So I have been meaning month after month to pick up this book because I think I'm absolutely gonna love it. It comes highly recommended from Jean's Bookish Thoughts. There are also little blurbs by Cory Doctorow and Amal El-Motar here on the book, and I really enjoy their writing too. So when I finally picked this book up, I have a feeling I'm gonna love it, and I have put it on my 24 for 2024 TBR, so hopefully that will be before the end of the year. Coming off the back of the fiction prompt is a non-fiction book that you haven't yet read. And this is also a book that I have put on my 24 for 2024 TBR, and that is Prisoners of Geography, 10 Maps That Explain Everything About the World by Tim Marshall. I also spoke about this in another recent video because I am hoping to read this in August. I'm actually hoping that by the time this video goes up, I will have at the very least began this book and read a little bit of it. Again, I first heard about this book, I believe it was back in 2019. I'm pretty sure if I go onto my Goodreads and organize my want to read shelf by date, this is the earliest or oldest, I guess, book on my Goodreads currently, because I do go through quite often and I'll sift through and get rid of books that aren't quite piquing my interest anymore. But Prisoners of Geography has survived that cull time after time. I do it maybe twice, 3 times a year. Prisoners of Geography has remained on my want to read list since 2019. I picked up a physical copy of it quite recently, I think. Maybe it was back in 2022, and I haven't yet read it. Nonfiction is not something that I read a whole lot of, but it is always a reading goal of mine to read more of it. So this year, I'd like to read 12 nonfiction books, and hopefully this will be my next nonfiction read. Our fourth and penultimate category for this tag is genre, and I decided to interpret this category in a similar way as to Theo by just selecting a book that falls within a particular genre, And I've decided to choose a book that falls within a particular subgenre, and that subgenre is military fantasy, and the book is The Black Company by Glen. This book is touted as changing the face of military fantasy and really creating that subgenre within fantasy. Obviously, I've heard about it and I've had it on my radar for several years, but I only picked up a physical copy, I think 2 years ago now or so. However, the last 2 years have been a little bit heavy in my personal life, so I haven't really felt motivated to pick up a dark, gritty fantasy, but The Black Company is on my 2024 TBR. So hopefully I will pick this up before the end of the year so that I can strike it off of the list. And I am really intrigued because this has such high acclaims. Sometimes that means I go into a book with a little bit more apprehension and I'm perhaps a little bit more critical of it, but I think this is going to be a really good classic fantasy book, and it is a Tor essential, so I feel like it is an essential to add to my collection, and hopefully I will read this sometime this autumn. And now finally, the last category of this tag is the book that I have owned the longest without reading. And this book could have fit into the first category because it is a classic, but that is A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. And I have owned this book since my university days. I'm pretty sure it predates Ulysses, but they were acquired around the same time. And I have begun A Clockwork Orange, but I've never finished it. If you know nothing about A Clockwork Orange, because my knowledge is very minimal too, but the back here describes it as a nightmare vision of youth in revolt. Alex and his friends set out on a diabolical orgy of robbery, rape, torture, and murder. And I remember beginning this on the bus to either my job or to class at the time, and there was a scene with a cat, and there was a lot of talk about rape, and I just was a little bit not in the mood for that at that period in my life. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure when I will be in the mood to read A Clockwork Orange. It is so slim. It is 140 pages. It is one of those classics, and I do think it's important to read classics and understand their impact on the genre and literature and everything that follows. But I also read predominantly for escapism. So really difficult books like this that deal with more difficult subject matter, they can be hard for me to get through. And A Clockwork Orange is definitely one of those books for me, I believe. Like I said, I received this as a gift from a friend. So I know I'm never gonna get rid of this book because someone thought of me, went to the store, bought it, gave it to me, because they wanted me to enjoy this book. So for that reason, I will always cherish it within my collection of books. And one day, I hope that I feel able to read the subject matter without my heart and my head hurting a little bit too much. But that's definitely not gonna be in 2024. I don't know if it'll be in 2025. So I think this book will continue to be the oldest book that I own and I have not read. If you have read A Clockwork Orange, let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you think it's worth me pushing through and trying to read this classic piece of fiction. So here are the 5 books that I've chosen for this tag that I have not read, but hopefully I will read these 3 sometime this year, and we will see when I get to Ulysses, and A Clockwork Orange. But if you have read any of these books or attempted to read any of these books, please let me know down below because I'd love to chat with you about your attempts. For now, that is it for me. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will be back soon with a new one. Bye for now.